imagine the back stages of the Soviet Union where observers can tell there are problems that are building in society. There are discontent and demands that are going to clash, especially when someone like Gorbachev is proposing reform. Things are suddenly thrown over to the discussion. The very notion that we have a celebration of the revolution and the Bolshevik legacy at a time when the state wants to enforce stability and an order that could succeed in the prior generation. Think of Brezhnev's time, for instance. All of that is a especially volatile mix and unlikely to work out very durably in the long run.
I would love to sort of talk about the work of the Communist Manifesto and Dr. What can we say that's interesting about anticipation of his ideas on labor?
Well, the first thing to know about Communist Manifesto is two works are very different. Marx worked at got the first volume out and stopped revising. And then the rest, Engels had to actually reconstruct out of notes after Marx passed away. It's a huge work. By contrast, the Communist Manifesto is a brief pamphlet that ended up affecting the lives of many millions, despite it. The Communist Manifesto, moreover, is also something of nature kind of a delayed view, because when it first appeared amid the revolutions of 1848 that sweep across Europe, the work is contrary to what people often believe. That pamphlet did not cause the revolutions of 1848, many of which had national or religious intentions. The voice of Marx and Engels was barely heard over the years of other far more prominent leaders. It is, however, in the aftermath that this work takes on tremendous significance and becomes popularly read and popularly distributed. It's especially the episode, the bloody episode of the Paris Commune in 1871, which comes to be identified with Marx, even though it was not purely inspired by Marx alone, nor were all of the counterparts devoted Marxists. It's the identification of this famous and infamous episode of urban upheaval that really leads to worldwide notoriety for Marx and and they're very different. Dutch capital is intended to be the ordinate species of its realm, economic thought, and represents years and years of work of Marx laboring in the British Museum Library, working through statistics, working on little bits and pieces of a larger answer, a big historical record the rise is totally different from that of the Communist Manifesto, which is a call to arms. It announces with great confidence what specificity will be, but rather than urging passivity, waiting for it to play out also a clarion call to make the revolution happen, and trying to be a pragmatic practice of how this will play out. And, it starts with those ringing words about a ghost or a specter haunting Europe, or a specter of communism, which wasn't true at the time, but decades later, most everything is.
Is there something we could say about the difference between Marxian economics and Marxist political ideology? So, political side of things, economic side.
So, I think that Marx would probably have responded that, in fact, those things are individual. If the analysis sort of purely theoretical is certainly could be on any economic reality that mentioned, but the imperatives that grow out of that economic analysis are political. Marx and Engels emphasize the unity of theory and practice. So it's not enough to dispassionate mechanics. it's a call to action, right? Because he's delivered the answer to how history evolves and changes. It obviously it demands certain action.
What? Come on, that would have been a perfect time, no? Oh, we didn't get this, did we?
History teachers that,
nope, we lost.
that Marxism was just a theoretical construct.
Get on point.
Idle
Get on point.
production
Nope.
of a philosopher who's
I can't believe
not
they got
connected
this
to
in the
world,
end.
that it was
Why am I
never
top
meant to be
kills?
tried in practice.
What?
Marx would have been furious to hear this, and it's almost heroically wrong as a historical statement, because Marx insisted that all previous philosophers have theorized about reality. What now is really necessary is to change it. So you could say that in the abstract, a Marxist economist can certainly use Marx's theoretical framework to compare to a given economic reality, but Marx would have seen that as incomplete and as deeply unsatisfactory. And there's kind of a footnote to all of this, which is that even though Marxist dialectical materialism grounds itself in these economic realities, and the political prescription is supposed to flow from economic realities and be inevitably growing out of them. In the real history of communist regimes, you've actually seen periods where the economics becomes detached from the politics. And I'm thinking in particular of the new economic period, early in the history of the Soviet Union, when Lenin realizes that the economy is so far gone that you need to reintroduce or allow in a limited way some elements of private enterprise just to start getting back on course in order to have the accumulation of surplus that is necessary to hold the economy at all. And that's there are many Bolsheviks who see the new economic program as a government policy as a terrible betrayal of but it's seen as necessary for a short while, and then Stalin will retire. Or consider for that matter China today. You have a dominant political party of China which is allowing economic development and private enterprise as long as it retains political control. So some of these elements already represent divergences from what Marx would have expected, and this points to a question. All of the history of communism has to do with the tradition, and that could be expressed in the following way. An original set of ideas is going to evolve. What elaboration of any doctrine, whether it's communism or religious doctrine, any political ideology, what elaborations are actual evolution of any living set of ideas? Or when you reach the point where some shift or some adaptation is so radically different that it actually breaks with the tradition. And that's an insoluble problem. You probably have to take it on a case-by-case basis. It speaks to issues like the question that gets raised today: is China in a meaningful country? And there's diversity of opinion. Or, if you're looking at the history of communism, and you look at North Korea, which now is on a two-thirds strong leader from the family who rules like a god king over his regime and all of that. Is that still a form of communism? Is it a evolution of? Is it a complete reversal of? I tend to want to take an anthropological perspective in this history. Take very seriously those people who avow that they are communists. And this is the project that they have underway. And then, after hearing that avowal, I think as a historian, you have to say, well, let's look at the details. Let's see what changes have been made, what contributions whether there's a larger pattern to be discerned here. So it's a very, very complicated history that we're talking about.
Let's step back to the end of the 19th century and the beginning of the 20th century, and let's steel man the case for communism. let's put ourselves in the shoes of the people there, not in this way when we look back at what happened. Why is this when they make the shift?
Well, clearly, part of the story is overall faith. Stories of people sacrificing themselves as well as their countrymen in a cause that they believe was not just legitimate, but totally. I think that throughout the early part of the 20th century, the late 19th century, early part of the 20th century, so much of the compelling case for communism came from the confidence that people in the West more generally placed in science. The notion that science answers problems. Science is giving us solutions to how the world around us works, how the world around us can be improved. Some varieties of that, and I watch the quotation marks, science, were crazy, right? Like phrenology, so-called scientific racism that tried to divide humanity up into discrete blocks and manipulate them in ways that were scientific or rational. So there were horrors that followed from those invocations of science, but its prestige was enormous. And that in part had to do with the lessening grip of religious ideas on intellectual elites, more generally processes of secularization, not total secularization, but processes of secularization in Western industrial societies, and the sense that here's a doctrine that will allow escape from wars brought on by capitalist competition, poverty and economic cycles and depressions brought on by capitalist competition, the inequalities of societies that remain hierarchical and class-based, and this claim to being cutting-edge science, I think, allows people like Lenin to derive immense confidence in the prescription that they have for the future. And that, paradoxically, the confidence that you have in broad strokes the right set of answers for how to get to the future also allows you to take huge liberties with the tactics and the strategies that you follow,
Penguin
as
Man.
long as your ultimate goal remains the one sketched by this master plan. So, ultimately, some of the predictions of someone like Lenin, that once society has reached that stage of the dictatorship of the proletariat, the notion that governments will essentially be able to run themselves. And the model he had in mind, oddly enough, was Swiss post offices. Being in Swiss exile must have impressed him so much with the orderliness and the sheer discipline and rationality of the Swiss post office. He thought, why can't you organize governments like this, where you don't need political leaders, you don't need grand visions, you have procedures, you have bureaucracy, which does its job in a way that's not alienating, but simply produces the greatest good. When you think of experiences of bureaucracy in the 20th century, what Harrison has, the comparative naivete on display with a prediction like that, but it derives from that confidence. It's all going to be okay because we understand, we have the key, we have the plan to how to ride this final configuration.
The certainty of science was the goal of the program. But also, on a human level, from a working class person. From the Industrial Revolution, you see the growing inequality. There is a time when getting wealthy, and combined with the fact that life is suffering. All. And there is kind of
What?
a powerful idea in that the man is exploiting you. And that's a populist message that a lot of people resonate with, because to a degree it's true. in every sector. And so before you kind of know how these economic and political ideas manifest themselves, it is really powerful to say, here, beyond the horizon, there's a world where the rich man will not exploit my hardware anymore. And I think that's a really powerful idea.
It is. At the same time, though, it wants to ignore the problem of the identity of the revolution. It turned out that many of these revolutionary movements and when the founders in the aftermath of the Soviet seizure of power turn out to be something quite different from people who have the Industrial Revolution firsthand. I mean, there's a special role here for intellectuals. When Marx and Engels write into the Communist Manifesto the notion that certain exceptional rise above in a way other people and transcend their earlier role, their materially determined role, in order to gain a perspective on the whole and a rival class struggle for communism. This sort of special role is carved out for themselves is an enormously appealing intellectual. Is any celebration of intellectual world movement? That frequent reality of not being in touch with the very classes that the communists are aiming to represent is a very frequent theme in this story. It also speaks to a crucial part of the story, which is the breaking apart, or the civil war, the war of brother against brother, the eternal struggle that splits socialists and splits followers of Marx. That's in the aftermath of the First World War, in particular, during these traumatic experiences. The way in which Lenin encourages the foundation of radical parties to break the social democracy, sort of been elaborated, especially in places like Germany, scorning their moderation and instead announcing a new dispensation, which was the Leninist conception of a disciplined, hardcore, professional revolutionary who will act in ways that a mere trade union movement couldn't. And what this speaks to is, a fundamental tension in radical movements, because left to their own devices, Lenin announces, workers tend to focus on their reality, their family, their work, want better work, unionize, and then aim to negotiate with employers, workers, advocate for reforms on the part of the state to improve their living conditions. And then they're happy for the advances that they have won. And for Lenin, that's not enough, because that's a half measure. That's the sort of thing that leads you into an accommodation with the system rather than the overthrow of the system. So there's a constant tension in this regard that plays itself out over the years.
Let's go to Lenin and the Russian Revolution. How did communism come to power?
They came to power as a result of stepping into a power vacuum. And the power vacuum was created by the First World War, and the effect that it had, total unprecedented pressure placed on a regime that in many ways was a traditional feudal monarchy, only in the beginnings of the modernization that the rest of Europe had undergone. For this reason, communism comes to power in a place that Marx probably wouldn't have been recognized of the Russian Empire. Lenin is absolutely vital.
What? Oh my God!
Presses the process forward. Ironically, given the claim of communist leaders to having the key to history, just a few months previous, in exile in Switzerland, Lenin had been despairing, been convinced that he may not even live to see the advent of that day. But then when revolution does break out in the Russian Empire in February February of 1917,
What?
Lenin is absolutely frantic to get back. And when he does get back, as a result of a deal that is negotiated with the German High Command, a step that they'll later live very much to regret, he's able to get back, go into action, and to press for nothing less than the seizure of power that brings his Bolshevik faction, the radical wing of the socialist movement, to power and then to build the Soviet Union.
I'm top kills
So even
again.
he was surprised how effective and how fast the revolution happened.
He was, although I think that he would have agreed that what was necessary was a cataclysm on the scale of the First World War to make this happen. The First World War shatters so many of the certainties of the 19th century. We talked about as a dynamic period with argument between ideologies. It scrambles all sorts of earlier debates. It renegotiates the status of the individual versus an all-powerful state and the claims of the state, because to win or even just to survive in World War I, you need to centralize, and to put everything onto a authoritarian wartime footing in country after country. So Lenin earlier had already articulated the possibility that this might happen by talking about how the entire globe already was connected. And there's a chain of capitalist development that is connecting different countries so that the weakest link in the chain, if it breaks, if it pops open, it might actually inaugurate much bigger processes and start a chain reaction. And that's what we intended to do and has a chance to do in the course of the next. Incidentally, just to get a sense of the sheer chaos and the human, on an individual human level, what the absence of established authority meant. There's few works of literature that are as powerful as Boris Pasternak's Dr. Zhivago for giving just the whole sweep of contending forces in a power vacuum. It's an amazing testimony to that kind of thing.
So you said the Bolsheviks saw violence and terror as necessary. Can you just speak to this? Because they took power.
Right, and it had antecedents. Even though Lenin and his colleagues are competing among for the title of most faithful disciple of Marx, most key to the key theory, earlier influences that operate in the Russian context that were not operative, let's say, in the German context. And here you have to step back and think about the nature of Tsarism, which had maintained still into the 20th century the notion of divine right to rule, that God had ordained the Tsarist system and its hierarchies, and that to question these was sinful and politically not advisable. And the restrictive nature of Russian society at this point, dominated by Tsarist its harshness, its reactionary nature, meant that another country might have been reformers, could instead very easily be provoked into becoming revolutionaries. And Lenin is a perfect example of this, because his older brother was executed as a result of being in a radical revolutionary movement who was arrested and executed for...
Okay, guys, it's been 12 and a half hours. I'm going to stop there. It was a fun session. Got some wins, got some losses. I want to say thank you. You've been watching Skycat Live. I'm a full-time variety gamer all day, every day. Put me on in the background. This session was recorded. It was 12 and a half hours long, and it will be placed on my YouTube, which is here. And as you can see, I have a lot of a lot of videos. And so come give me a like and come give me some views and stuff. Give me a like, sub, or follow. Thank you for your attention tonight. Thank you so much. It was fun to lose a Final Fantasy hardcore character. It was fun to play WoW and get to level 24. And it was fun to, play some 76 and some EvE. And, got a lot of mining done and just got a lot of stuff done. And so played some LOTRO. Took a what is it called, an LM, a lore master to whatever it was, level 7 or something like that. So pretty fun. And that's all I have for you today. Just a reminder, you've been watching Skycat Live. I'm a full-time variety gamer all day every day. Put me on the background, click on the cast face to donate. I'm tired. I'm going to bed before it's too much later. And y'all have a good day, and I'll see you tomorrow. I'll be on in about here 8 or 10 hours, something like that, after I sleep, to come entertain you some more. So come check me out tomorrow. Thank you so much for everything today. Thank you. Love you guys. Bye. There's the